This is our presentation to third INFOMEC conference. The title of this paper is, Can we reduce sex crimes in Malaysia? This paper is prepared by NAJIMUDEEN, Mio Lamin and Masharuddin Abdul Wahab from Obstetric and Gynecological Unit, International Medical School, Management and Science University Shah Alam Selangor. As we know, Malaysia is committed to United Nations Convention on the elimination of all forms of discrimination against women and rights of the child. But the sex crime are continued to escalate in the peninsula. This paper aims to review prevalence, underlying causes, and preventive measures of sex crime in Malaysia. This is a systemic review of 15 research articles, and the result is the sex crime is a spectrum. In Malaysia, the rate was only 1% of all the crimes during the 6-year period from 2005 to 2011, but within the 2-year period from 2012 to 2014, it had increased to 2.1%. The goal of sexual violence prevention is to stop it from happening in the first place. The sex offenders are indeed a heterogeneous group with pervasive familial, behavioral, academic, and social problems, which are possible risks that can be identified early in the life of the offenders. For introduction, the sexual violence is associated with many acute and chronic sequelae such as numerous psychological effects along with a spectrum of physical and psychiatric disorders, vaginal or rectal injury, sexual transmitted infections, and unwanted pregnancy. In addition to anxiety and depression, psychological adverse effects of the sexual assault include intense feeling of shame and guilt. These feelings are worsened by the lack of support from family, friends, or authorities. For the methodology in this systemic review, 15 research articles were selected in line with the scope of study through keyword sex crime, sex traffic, rape, Malaysia, screening. The materials were accessed from online database that covered topics such as vulnerable population, characteristics of the offenders, and the legal issues of sex crime.
In Malaysia, the incidence of rape in the year 2000 was 1,217. In 2005, it had increased to 1,931, and in 2010, it increased to 3,595. 10 women are raped daily. In the year 2013, out of 2,767 cases reported, 398 victims were the girls under 12 years. Among these offenders, 591 were under the age of 18 years. From February 2008 to 2010, 484 human trafficking victims were rescued. Among these, 291 were sex trafficking victims and 25 were below the age of 18. There is an association between a history of sexual abuse and lifetime diagnosis of anxiety, depression, early disorders, post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, sleep disorders, and suicide attempts, but not with schizophrenia or somatoform disorders. Suicidal ideation is more common among survivors of sexual assault than the general population. Younger survivors are at particular risk of attempting suicide following rape. Rape is a significant trauma that leads to short-term and long-term stress reaction, and victims are at significantly increased risk of developing PTSD. Nearly 1/3 to 50% of all rape victims develops rape-related PTSD sometime during their lifetimes. The 4 major symptoms of rape-related PTSD are re-experiencing the trauma or intrusive thoughts, social withdrawal, avoidance behavior and actions, and increased physiological arousal characteristics.
So in conclusion, the solution of preventing sexual violence is complex as the problem. It requires addressing the factors at all levels of the social ecology. The offender should be managed with cognitive behavioral, psychological education, and pharmacological treatment. This cannot be solved by having laws and procedures alone. Mass media community-based projects, media education with involvement of religious leaders, and strict enforcement of law can reduce sex crimes in Malaysia. Thank you very much.